All right, everybody, we are back with this week's SKTLs volunteer call.
Here he is.
Joined by
Yep.
Cody Willard, Dan Geraci, Joe Sinazzi, bunch of regulars, probably seen here each week or close to. Where should we start? Well, I guess what's the latest? Been talking about a lot of space news, I guess, the past couple of weeks there. Dan, any exciting developments within the past week or so?
Well, it's the conference season is well underway for the industry. Military, commercial. The big one, SpaceCom, big conference down in Orlando is going on as we speak. A lot of developments there. Space Command, SpaceWorks, all making big presentations. Major General Purdy, who runs the East Coast launch facilities, but also is basically in charge of a term that you're going to hear a lot about if you pay attention to the sector, and that's space mobility, which is really the capabilities surrounding getting stuff to orbit, launches, rockets, cargo, satellites, all of the needs of the Defense Department. And in some comments today, yesterday, he made the point of, a couple of years ago, we weren't even thinking about this, doing this. It wasn't an option. And now, absolutely, we need to embrace commercial companies to do everything we need for the military. Any kind of missions, launching items to rare orbits that aren't typically what people would think of. These are things like surveillance satellites and other assets that would be using commercial launchers. Smaller launch companies, we've talked about that in the past. They've also made a good case for being able to launch, single payload type missions for the military. So they're going to tap the entire industry. So the future on the commercial side, as we've said before, the good news about this industry is that the cyclicality of most purely commercial industries, in this case, is going to, any economic cycle that's negative is going to be offset by having that big buyer there 24/7 in the federal government. So great prospects for a lot of these companies. There's still too many launchers, but the ones that will survive will be, I think, frankly, pretty busy.
Well, and it's a big buyer who has an almost unlimited budget, right? I mean, that's part of it. So,
and whether you believe it or not, or it's a philosophy or not, the reality is that the military-industrial complex does quite well when things are a little bit tense, as they have been of late and as they are. And I'm not quoting the the Chinese defense spokesperson. I'm talking about over the last few days, but just generally. I mean, we've got to continue to protect our national interests. Space is a big part of it. Space protection is part of NATO's, Section 5 clause now. That language was put in a year ago. So now our mutual defense under NATO extends to space.
But Dan, can I interject that one of the things, like, why one of the main reasons I love space as a concept and investing in space specifically, while at the same time I do not invest in Lockheed Martin or military industrial complex companies, because I don't want to fund bombs. I don't want to fund bombs that are dropped on children anywhere, where there's ever an accidental death because my money or my investors in my hedge funds money somehow was funding the bombs that were dropped. The space itself is a defense thing. It's true it's what the military in the United States is supposed to be doing. defending us, not over there protecting oil corporations in the Middle East, bombing children in Syria or something. The United States, you can't separate investing in space from the military, but the military is not bombing people from space.
No, that's true. I think the reality is, though, anything that happens in space militarily is going to affect life on Earth. And it could have devastating effects. And things can be dropped from orbit. And that's a capability that we know the Chinese have. Kinetic weapons. I'm not even talking about missiles. You know, drop a ton of concrete from orbit and see what it does when it hits the center of the city. It's worse than a bomb. So, you know, this isn't science fiction anymore. And so it's not being alarmist, it's being a realist in saying that there is no safe warfighting domain.
And it's asymmetric what the United States investments and capabilities that we have in space already, and what Iran or China or any nefarious actor might be able to do with just launching missiles into the lower Earth orbit, trying to target Starlink satellites and blowing up Maxar's satellites, and not to mention communications satellites that make the cell phones work.
Yeah. Cell phones, GPS goes down. You have logistics for all kinds of recovery efforts and getting things to people. We don't understand yet as a society how dependent we are on what's happening above us. And most of those critical national assets around communications and guidance and all of these other things are off the planet. Yes, a lot of it is laying under the ocean and you know, transatlantic cables and things of that nature, but more and more is above our heads. And I think you can't separate military and space. You can't separate prime contractors from the fact that they manufacture the lion's share of all the spacecraft that have gone up and are going to go up, with the exception of a couple of large companies and some satellite makers. So it's a hard thing to cut down the middle on, for sure, from a portfolio standpoint. It's not easy. And you're going to have private space companies that are going to manufacture things for the military. You're going to have private space companies that are going to launch the military's space weaponry, if you will.
Well, that's the problem, like with SpaceX, right? Is that SpaceX is not doing right, but SpaceX specifically, right? Like it's the biggest, easiest one to point out. So SpaceX is not out there like doing military industrial complex stuff per se, but the military industrial complex is sending up defensive satellites using SpaceX, and the capability for them to use SpaceX to send up actual weapons that could attack people in the Middle East also exists.
You drove the car to the bank robbery, or you robbed the bank. Either way, you're in the middle. And,
I don't want to feel that.
No, but understand, SpaceX is also competing to build satellites for the Space Force. Right. So they've crossed.
Well, speaking of which, did you guys see Lunar, LUNR, the stock symbol today? I tried to short it, but you can't borrow it. Can't buy puts on it. The thing de-SPAC'd last week, didn't even have full allocation. There were people redeeming their shares before it de-SPAC'd. Stock comes public at $10. Yesterday it hits like 30. Today it hit 140. And now it's trading at 77. It's down 50% in the last hour and a half. It's going back to 10, probably on its way to 2. This is not a space company I would want to invest in. Be careful playing FOMO, Wall Street bets, Reddit nonsense.
Well, here's the one issue on that. This SPAC actually has a real space company in it. That's the difference. In other words, Intuitive Machines is a real company.
I went down the rabbit hole a little bit, Dan, and I don't think it's not that it's not a real company, but they are promising a heck of a lot more than they're going to be able to deliver. They say they're going to do $750 million in lunar services revenue in 2024?
They've been given a number of contracts from NASA. They're right down the street.
88 million, Dan. 88 million
Yeah.
is how much their contracts are worth. They've got to get 10 times more than that in the next 18 months if they're going to hit those targets.
Yep. Yep. They've got quite a piece of equipment in this lander. I don't know about revenue expectations being realistic, but they are real. They'll be the first American hardware on the moon since Apollo when they go up. So I know a number of the people there. It's got
the same chairman as Axiom Space, correct?
What's that?
Does it have the same chairman as Axiom Space? The same founder as Axiom Space?
Not that I'm aware of.
I thought I read that today.
Maybe there is a connection back there. And by the way, they're both neighbors here at the Houston Spaceport. Axiom is building a 200,000 square foot facility next to Collins, who built a 150,000 square foot facility, and Intuitive Machines is building a 150,000 square foot facility.
Dan, one of these days, you've got to do the call with the space stuff and rocket ships behind you. We'll have to take your phone outside and do the Zoom call.
Oh yeah, I'll have to go over to the Space Center and stand there. Yeah,
it'd be cool. We would love to see that. You walk around, we're like, yeah, look at this. Yeah.
You do it in front of the shuttle, sitting on the 747.
Let's hit on space debris. A lot of news this week, even on space debris. You guys go follow us on Twitter if you have not. SKTL crypto. What is our crypto Skittles crypto?
Skittles crypto.
Yeah, thank you. SKTLS crypto on Twitter. Go over there and check it out. You guys haven't, but there was a nice little thread that I don't know who wants to take credit for doing that thread past week on space debris. It was a nice thread someone did on SKTLs Crypto for us.
Must have been one of those social media guys, those volunteers.
Thank you, volunteer, whoever did that one. I read it and found it.
Was that the 7-part thread?
Yeah, and it was. But Dan, there is every day more and more space debris mishaps and potential mishaps. The whole point of the SKTL Space Crypto, to remind everybody, is to fund ideas, companies, countries, university students who are figuring out ways to mitigate space debris so that we can continue to launch stuff to space, even if the Russians and Chinese want to blow our stuff up.
Yeah, and by the way, in Slack, I put a handful of potential companies to look at as awardees, for example, that are working in this area, just for people's edification. But interestingly enough, this week I was flipping around and decided to watch a movie I hadn't watched in years, Gravity.
Oh,
and you want to get a lesson on space debris. Just watch that movie.
Terrifying. They're about to get hit with space debris in their spacesuit, which is a little bit unrealistic at this point, but not necessarily. If you were out there zooming around,
it's happened on the space station where they had to get inside because of reported debris, and the station's been hit. We know that. So not out of the ordinary when you have multiple astronauts doing EVAs, outside of spacecraft or space stations or whatever, and something happens, because it doesn't take long. It's only a 90-minute orbit of the Earth up there, so it doesn't take long before everything comes back around again. So but yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot of these companies are working away. I think one of the areas, I noticed somebody put up the debris map. The reality is that one of the biggest areas are these companies that have developed ground-based capability for mapping every piece of debris in orbit. And so that is a valuable resource, is to have a map. And some of them have navigation software they've designed that will automatically keep a satellite or a spacecraft from hitting anything. by having control over its ability to move in and out of the way.
My Tesla has that.
Yeah, well, and Kahan Space, which is one of the companies I listed in Slack, it's a really cool company. It's all about autonomous navigation for space safety, orbital safety. So that's going to happen before we get rid of every piece of debris. Is we're going to have to know where to be and park in orbits that are virtually free of debris.
At least for now, until we blow up.
Somebody blows something up, and here we go.
Things accidentally collide at 17,000 miles per hour, and then there's endless debris in that plane too.
Yep.
A couple of comments, you guys. Look, if you want to be a volunteer, if you're watching this and you want to be a volunteer on this team, just go, reach out to us. You can send an email to missioncontrol@sktls.com. You can reach out to us on our Twitter. You can reach out to us on Instagram even, I'm sure. We've got a Discord channel. Go to SKTLS.com, and you can find all of our social media and places to connect with us. We'd love to have more volunteers. We have started taking applications for the first Space Day SKTLs grant rewards. What are we going to call that? We're going to be donating 10 million, little over 10 million tokens to 5 different entities at the current price of 2 cents per SKTL token. The last time I checked yesterday, maybe the day before, it's been here for about 3 weeks. It's the best looking chart in crypto. The SKTLs token is. We will be granting 2 million of those to 5 different entities in 3 months. So if you're watching this and you have an idea of how to combat, mitigate, even just experiment on how we should be figuring out cleaning up space debris, go to SKTLS.com. There's a page. You go there and submit your application. We haven't had very many people submit applications yet. I'm going to start telling like 5th graders I know to go submit their application for ideas. And there's going to be some 5th grader going to get $40,000 worth of tokens in May if you guys watching don't end up actually putting putting the real company or an idea in there. And the grants are going to be made first Friday of May regardless. So the SKTLs team and the volunteers will be helping figure out who's going to win that, but it will be the community that'll vote on this. And the top 5 vote getters get 2 million tokens each. There are no founders tokens. Yeah. I always like to mention.
Cody,
it's a Nazi.
Cabana, I think, just pasted the same link. So for the debris found the application, pasted the link, and also the link to Discord in the chat.
Wonderful, thank you, guys. I will be putting. I was reading the chat comment as I'm trying to talk. I'll put that space debris application on the front page of SKTLS.com so people can find it as soon as they get there. I'll do that this week. But in the meantime, yeah, you just go to the site and you can find it in the menu anyway. But we'll continue to market it. You can find it on our Twitter handle and everywhere else. It's not that hard to find. If you're interested, you can get the application to us, I'm sure.
And just really quick before we wrap, we have.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have a handful of people actually watching this live. So if you have questions or a comment, feel free to throw it in the chat and, we'll address it. So, yeah,
sure. Dan, getting Dan on one of these calls is always fun because no matter what someone's going to ask about space, I'm pretty sure Dan's going to be able to help us figure it out. A great answer. The guy knows more about space than anyone I've ever met has forgotten.
That's my line.
I know I took it from you. It was great, so I stole it. I don't know that I've ever had an original thought in my life. I am just really good at repeating great commentary or funny jokes. Like I hear a funny joke, I can repeat it forever. We had a founder watching ask, can founders apply for the application? I suppose. I mean, I'm not going to because I might be I'm too active. Dan, I don't think you should be applying for it. But yeah, like Piper, if you've got a great idea and you want to submit it to the group, I don't know that we could tell you not to.
It's so funny he said that, because I was thinking the exact same thing, because I have some great ideas that resemble, cartoon-esque type ideas that I think would be outstanding. So you never know.
Yeah. So Joe, I mean, if you're not going to become the CEO of SKTLs volunteers team or whatever it is it would be, then I think you too could apply for the fact of the matter is we don't want to necessarily make it so that you have to choose volunteer for the team or try to get the grant, because the people who want to volunteer for the team are the same people who are going to have great ideas for how to clean up space debris. So yeah, it's not mutually exclusive. You guys can apply. Again, I'm not going to, because I'm not sure I've got a hedge fund and stuff to run full time anyway. But
by the way,
yeah,
vacuum cleaners have already been suggested and kicked out. So
oh, mine's much more juvenile than that, and at the same time, much better idea than that. So,
again, not mutually exclusive. You can have a very juvenile idea that's actually a great idea, right?
I'm not discounting it completely. So, and back to your first question, I'm dragging that offer. I'm going to keep dragging that out until I can make a final decision.
Cabana, I've asked him 5 times. He ignored my text at this point.
What?
I told my partner. I told my partner here at the hedge fund the other day that I tweeted this a couple of weeks ago. I don't understand, with all the technology we've got, that we can connect a module to the space station at 17,000 miles per hour, how many high miles it is above us, but we had to shoot down the balloon because it was at 60,000 feet. And I told, my idea is, why didn't we capture it? Could have shot it with a spear that was connected to a rope or something and pull it down. My partner thought that I was. He's a cowboy. He ropes, does rodeos and stuff. He's pretty sure that I was saying that we should have cowboys on the end of an airplane trying to rope it. And I'm like, no. It's not what I'm saying at all. I know you guys couldn't shoot.
You mean a real space cowboy?
Yeah.
A real space cowboy.
Actually, there was a retrieval mission that came out of orbit that was on a balloon, a parachute, I think it was, and it was captured by an airplane with a trailing hook that flew by and grabbed the lines of the chute, I believe.
Like Batman.
And snagged it and brought it in. So
imagine that, Bryce. Apparently they had a plan to capture it. They've done this stuff before. It didn't.
It can't be any harder than missing a balloon with a missile, as we did in one case. So
you guys ever heard the band? You of course know Steve Miller Band. You've never heard the song Space Cowboy before, have you? Yeah, they got a song called Space Cowboy. I'm gonna put it on speakers over here while we're talking.
Oh God.
Dan,
so,
can you provide a link to you mentioned mapping every piece of debris in space. Can you provide a link to that?
I've got a couple of companies that I'll post in there. I just want to double check. Kahan has a database. I put them in the chat. But I think there's one really good company out of, I think they're out of Poland or Germany, actually. Vyoma is a really good company. V as in Victor, Y-O-M as in Mary A. .space. I've met with them several times. They're based in Germany, but they've developed a really impressive mapping capability for space objects. And they've done it from the ground, but they're putting up satellites with cameras that are going to be able to also do closer identification and mapping as well. It's a startup.
What was the name again? V-O-Y-M-A?
V as in Victor. Here, let me put it. I'll put it in the. Let me put it in the chat. I'll put it in the
I'm going to play Space Cowboy. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know the song. It's an obscure song. None of you guys.
It's a great song. It's a
You
classic.
actually know the song Space Cowboy, Greg?
Absolutely. Wah, wah.
All right.
Oh,
Put it
boy.
on in the background at least.
Greg's on lead.
We got an old-fashioned Marshall wah-wah pedal going in that song as well.
Oh, you might not want to bet on that because what's his name? Steve Miller's famous for making his own equipment, right? And pedals.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. He helped Eddie Van Halen. At least my brother told me that one time. If my brother told me something, he's older than me. If he told me something before the age of 18, in my mind, it's a fact. I can repeat it like it's a fact. I hope my brother wasn't lying about it. He might have made that shit up, though. Space Cowboy. You hear it, Greg?
Oops, I do.
A little bit.
I could turn it up, but all right. All right, any last questions or comments?
Should be a lot of, I would say pay attention to space news. They'll be posting a lot of the speeches and outcomes from the conferences that are going on. It's always a great place to get real-time on-site reporting because they're present at all these things. So spacenews.com will give you the up-to-date commentary because there are going to be a lot of announcements that are people wait to make them, including DOD at these conferences.
Awesome. Jeff Ganley, any questions or comments before we hop off today?
Nope, just listening in. Thanks.
Thanks for being here. All right, guys. We got it. NVIDIA's earnings coming up tonight. Unity just reported. No space
Unity
stock.
bad.
Unity was bad. Yeah, it's down $3.
NVIDIA looks flat.
Yeah, it hasn't reported yet. We're waiting.
Oh, really?
We're waiting.
I thought it was
Yeah,
420.
Hey,
No,
Cody,
that's the marijuana code, bro.
That's right. Well, they said 420
check out
earlier,
Luna.
but
They're slow. And they
430.
forgot what the
I guess.
earnings were.
Be careful out there with de-SPACed stocks going up 1,100%. I'll leave you with that thought. Peace, love, and happiness.
We need a put.
Greg, what?
I said I think Lunar's a put once the liquidity starts.
Yeah, dude, that's what you missed it. I was saying earlier, if I could have shorted it at 110 today, I was ready to pull the. In fact, I was looking for the shares at 80, but you can't borrow any. There's no options. You can't buy puts. It just came public.
It's artificial.
So, like anybody, you just know it got run. It got run today. Be careful out there with that stuff. Those are not valuations that anybody really wants to play with.
No, what did they say? Like over 90% of the subscribers decided to redeem their equities at time of the SPAC. I sent the
90%?
Let me see. I'll pull it up right now. I think I might have said.
I saw an article that said there was a lot of redemptions. I didn't finish going down the path yet.
Yeah, let's see.
Whatever it was redeemed. There was redemption.
279.8 million prior to the transaction closing was redeemed, and they had expected to run 301 million in dry powder.
Wow! So they only got 21 million bucks on the raise or so.
Yeah, well, but they got 55 in pipe. Excuse me, they got 55. Yeah, from.
So they got 80 million on the pipe, and the stock is now $3.6 billion market cap. Do the math. Doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't work.
Be careful. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next
Next are like IPOs.
Puts,
Don't
baby.
buy on the offering.
And Geraci.